Japan already plans to deploy F-35B stealth fighters on carrier-light helicopter destroyers. A new air warfare strategy would incorporate American-made standoff air-to-surface missiles. A long-range anti-ship missile would just be a continuation of that trend. Japan is developing a longer-range, air-launched anti-ship cruise missile. The reason? China's Navy is deploying longer-range anti-aircraft missiles, which means Japanese aircraft will have to launch their anti-ship weapons from longer range or risk being shot down. Defense Minister Takeshi Iwaya cited longer-range air defenses on warships belonging to some countries, though there could be little doubt that he was referring to one nation in particular. The plan involves extending the range of Japan's supersonic ASM-3 air-to-ship missiles, which are said to have a range of less than 200 kilometers or 124 miles, to over 400 kilometers or 249 miles, with the aim of beefing up Tokyo's ability to defend a chain of outlying islands in the southwest, according to Japan's Mainichi newspaper several years back. The F-2s are expected to retire in the 2030s, and Iwaya said Japan is considering loading their successor fighter jets with the longer-range missiles, Mainichi noted. Japan is developing the F-3, an indigenous stealth fighter. What's interesting is that the new missile is being developed even though Japan only finished developing its predecessor, the ASM-3. The ASM-3 was designed to be launched by the F-2, Japan's version of the US F-16. The missile can either travel straight at the target ship from low altitude, or be launched low and pop up to high altitude before diving down on its target. Japan is already opting for long-range ship killers with the purchase of Norway's Joint Strike Missile, with a range of up to 350 miles, for its F-35 stealth fighters. As for the ASM-3, a Mach 3 missile with a range of just over 100 miles might have proved quite devastating against China's Navy a decade ago. But the People's Liberation Army Navy has a new generation of warships, such as the Type 052D guided missile destroyer armed with the HQ-9 anti-aircraft missile, derived from the land-based HQ-9. The HQ-9 has a range of about 75 to 125 miles depending on the version, which would bring ASM-3 equipped Japanese fighters uncomfortably close to Chinese air defenses. But there may be another reason for Japan's desire for a longer-ranged anti-ship missile. China is building a fleet of aircraft carriers, whose jet fighters would extend the air defense perimeter of a Chinese naval task force beyond surface-to-air missile range. The situation would be reminiscent of the Cold War, when missile-equipped Soviet bombers such as the Tu-22M backfire, equipped with long-range anti-ship missiles, faced U.S. carrier-based aircraft such as the F-14 Tomcat, which would have endeavored to intercept the bombers before they could reach launch range. Had the Cold War turned hot, the question is whether the backfires would have been down before they could saturate American carrier groups with missiles. What's also interesting is that Japan is extending the range of its weapons. Haunted by the disaster of World War II, a fiercely pacifistic Japan, despite having a fairly large and sophisticated military, had no appetite for long-distance operations outside Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga's government approved a 9th consecutive rise in military spending on Monday, to fund the development of an advanced stealth fighter and longer-range anti-ship missile to counter China's growing military power. The Ministry of Defense will get a record 5.34 trillion yen, $51.7 billion, for the year starting in April, up 1.1% from this year. With Suga's large majority in Parliament, enactment of the budget is all but certain. Suga is continuing the controversial military expansion pursued by his predecessor, Shinzo Abe, to give Japan's forces new planes, missiles, and aircraft carriers with greater range and potency against potential foes, including neighboring China. Japan is buying longer-range missiles and considering arming and training its military to strike distant land targets in China, North Korea, and other parts of Asia. A planned jet fighter, the first in 3 decades, is expected to cost around $40 billion and be ready in the 2030s. That project, which will be led by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries with help from the U.S. company Lockheed Martin, gets $706 million in the new budget. Japan will spend $323 million to begin the development of a long-range anti-ship missile to defend the Okinawan island chain in its southwest. Other big purchases include $628 million for 6 Lockheed F-35 stealth fighters, including 2 short takeoff and vertical landing (STOVL) variants that will operate off a converted helicopter carrier. The military will also get $912 million to build 2 compact warships that can operate with fewer sailors than conventional destroyers, easing pressure on a navy struggling to find recruits in an aging population. Japan also wants 2 new warships to carry powerful new Aegis air and ballistic missile defense radars that have much as 3 times the range of older models. The government has not yet estimated the cost of the plan, which replaces a project cancelled in June to construct 2 ground Aegis ashore stations. How strong is the Japanese Navy? The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force is a self-defense force designed to overcome the country's constitutional limits on armed forces. It is, ship for ship, the best navy in Asia. The main component of the MSDF are its fleet of 46 destroyers and frigates, more than those fielded by the United Kingdom and France combined. Organized into escort flotillas, Japan's Tinkan Navy is designed to defend the country from invasion, help retake Japanese territory and keep the sea lanes open. The most powerful of Japan's surface combatants are the Kongo class of guided missile destroyers. The 4 ships, Kongo, Kirishima, Myoko, and Shokai, are all named after battleships and cruisers of the Imperial Japanese Navy, a practice once generally avoided but becoming more popular as the memory of World War II fades. Kongo destroyers are based on the original U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke-class Flight I destroyers in general shape and armament. Like the Burke class, the heart of the ship is the Aegis combat system, capable of tracking and engaging area air defense threats. It also provides a national ballistic missile defense system for all of Japan. Just 2 Kongos can protect most of the country. Armament for the destroyers is primarily defensive, with 90 Mark 41 vertical launching missile silos, split between the fore and aft decks. The Kongos carry SM-2 Mr. Air Defense missiles and SM-3 Block 1B ballistic missile interceptors, the latter soon to be replaced with the newer Block 2A version. The destroyers also carry 1 5-inch main gun, 8 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, 6 anti-submarine torpedo tubes and 2 20mm phalanx close-in weapon systems. Another formidable Japanese ship is the JS Izumo. At 27,000 tons fully loaded and more than 800 feet long, Izumo has a full-length flight deck, an island for controlling flight operations, aircraft elevators, and a hangar that spans the length of the ship. While that sounds like a traditional aircraft carrier, Japan insists the ship is actually a helicopter destroyer. Izumo can't carry fixed-wing fighter jets, but it can carry up to 14 helicopters. These helicopters and their missions can vary, from anti-submarine warfare to minesweeping to helicopter airmobile assault. This makes the Izumo a flexible platform capable of taking on a variety of tasks. A second ship of the class, Kaga, is currently under construction. Japan's submarine force is another major component of the MSDF. Japan is building up to a force of 22 submarines to provide great numbers against a growing Chinese navy. The fleet will consist of 2 classes of submarines, the older Oishio class, and the newer, deadlier Soryu class. At 4,100 tons submerged, the Soryu submarines are Japan's largest submarines since the I-400 class of World War II. The subs are equipped with Stirling air-independent propulsion systems, capable of powering the submarine silently underwater for up to 2 weeks, and can make 13 knots surfaced and 20 knots submerged. The Soryus are equipped with 6 533mm bow-mounted torpedo tubes, with a mix of 20 Type 89 heavyweight homing torpedoes and American-made sub-Harpoon missiles. They can also lay mines to block the many straits an invasion force would attempt to force. Finally, Japan has 3 Osumi-class tank landing ships. The ships resemble small aircraft carriers, with a 130-meter-long flight deck stretching the length of the ship. That's where the resemblance ends, however, as the Osumi ships lack aircraft elevators and a hangar. The ships were designed to rapidly move ground self-defense force tanks between the main islands of Japan, reinforcing any of them against invasion. The Osumis can carry up to 1,400 tons of cargo, 14 Type 10 or Type 90 tanks, and up to 1,000 ground troops. They are equipped with well decks and American-designed LCAC hovercraft, allowing them to float out heavy equipment and send them to shore. This capability is especially useful in light of Japan's new dynamic defense strategy, which calls for amphibious forces capable of taking back islands seized by a hypothetical enemy.